Good afternoon, everyone. From a very disappointed, disgruntled, and frustrated Leader Blues Spur, I was thinking about doing my match reaction straight after the game yesterday. But to be honest with you, the truth of it is, I really just couldn't bring myself to talk about it. And I'm still struggling to talk about it today. And it's crazy, right? This is just a football team, a football match. Um, but it's just ruined my whole weekend. And when you have to bear in mind that I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to the bus. It takes over 3 hours to get to London. Um, it takes 4 hours to get home after the match. We didn't get home until 9 o'clock at night last night. All for 2 hours worth of football, if you can call it that, because to be honest with you, it really didn't feel like that. And yeah, absolutely stressed out and fed up and disgruntled with it. In fact, um, I'm seriously debating when I'm going to be able to go back up to watch the matches because I just, I just found it absolutely soul destroying. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This club is killing my soul. Like, I don't know how much further we need to drop. Um, I literally don't. And the trouble is with football is you sign up for life, don't you? As soon as you've picked your team, yes, you've signed up for life, and you're in it until you pass. And so I guess that's the difficult part of it. The only thing I guess is that you can control how much you let it affect you. But I have to say, yesterday has really affected me, affected how I feel, affected me how I feel about the club, how I feel about the manager, how I feel about some of the players, everything. I'm absolutely feel like I'm at the end of my tether. I'm not one to rant and rave and do all the clickbait stuff and that kind of thing. Um, I'm too old for all that, to be honest with you. But I've got to say, that has got to be, and it feels like you're saying it every week. It's got to be one of the worst performances that I've seen from this football team. It's just unbelievable how bad it's got. We needed to win at Everton. We needed to win against Leicester, but we've done neither. And for the first time, I've now really started to consider that we could end up really in this relegation scrap. Now, my head is saying there are three worse teams in this league than us, but we've lost to both of them, or lost to two of them, and I just can't I can't now write it off as a scenario that could occur, as much as I want to. You know, honestly, my heart's saying no, it won't happen, but my head is saying very close now. Everton are 1 point behind us with a game in hand. We've just lost to Leicester, we're in the bottom three. We've lost to Ipswich, who are in the bottom three. The only saving grace is Ipswich, who we beat 5-0. So there's one team in there that when they come to the stadium, we might have a chance of beating. But even that, I don't feel is guaranteed. And I know any team can lose to any team. I've said that so many times. But there are times when you think to yourself, you cannot afford to lose that. But for me, there was just not enough in our team to actually put up enough of a fight to win it. And that's what scares me about the relegation conversation is that when you look at the players that you've got there, if you were really in that relegation scrap, I don't believe that they're strong enough mentally to really know what to do to fight and to go to get out of it. I knew that this season was going to be a difficult one. I've said that because obviously, letting players go, only having certain players coming in, lots of youngsters, lots of turnover and so like that. Playing in Europe, which is a bigger strain with a smaller squad, was also going to make it difficult. Bearing in mind we had a tough end of season last season, even without European football. This is making it harder. And I was happy to write off top 4, top 6, provided we're doing well in the cups. But what I wasn't banking on was being down at 15th, potentially moving into 16th. To be honest, I'm really drawn on this whole situation. From the perspective of the being at the game yesterday, I have to tell you that the chants for Levy out are getting louder and louder and louder. There was a significant amount of people singing that. You could see it all around you. You could see it in the lower levels and certainly in the South Stand where I sit. And I don't think I've ever heard it as loud as that. Even back, going back years, I've never heard it as loud as that. And it is growing and growing and growing. There was a big banner. It said something like 24 years, 16 managers, 1 trophy, time for change. Really good. And I think the stewards didn't know what to do when it first came out. I think they wanted to take it down, but the people holding it up weren't going to let them. Fair play to them. They have a right to say what they want to say. Although even normal flags in the stadium is difficult. You literally have to have a authorization to bring your flag in so that it meets fire regulations and all the rest of it, and it can't have the word "yid" on it. I know because it does say that on my flag, and I had to get my wife to put a Spurs over the word "yid" just to be compliant, to be allowed in. So yeah, fair play to them for getting that in. It is the club's stadium, so they can refuse you to display your flag, but they still managed to do it, and fair play to them. They've got a right to demonstrate. And it got a lot of support. And I think their Twitter handle is something like @TimeForChange, and that's gaining a lot of followers. I think it was up to 9,000 when I followed them. So yeah, there is a growing issue going on there. Whilst I've always supported the manager of the club, regardless of who they are, even when George Graham came in, I had to support him. He was our manager. I didn't like it, but I supported him because he was our manager. I'm getting to a point now where I'm finding it difficult to justify some of the decisions he makes. I absolutely get it. We've got so many injuries to key players, not just to some players, but to key players that I was prepared to give him a little bit of leeway on that and say, well, look, a lot of injuries and stuff like that. You need to kind of consider that, because if you add those players back, you've maybe got a level of rotation in there that helps. And of course, the club are not signing anyone, so that makes his job even harder than it already is. And so I can kind of go, it's not being backed by the owners, so I can kind of give him credit for that. However, I don't think he's continuously helping himself here, because you cannot, and I said this on the Perfect Match stream that they've had this afternoon, Kate and Jimbo. If you've not watching that, you should. It's a really good live stream. You cannot complain about lack of depth of your squad and then not use some of the players that are available, even if you don't really rate them. They're not your best options. They're not the ones you would really want to put your money on. You cannot afford to say, I'm not playing that player, and I'm going to overuse this player. So case in point is Pape Sarr. who Ange after the game said shouldn't have been playing. Well, if he shouldn't have been playing, Ange, why are you playing him? Because he's got no other option. Well, hold on. Let's think about that for a minute. You're pushing Kulu out to the right because you haven't got a right-sided attacker. So when he plays out on that right-hand side, he has been less effective. He's not really controlled the game or got as involved in the game as when he's in the centre. So why not maybe move him to the centre? Then you could perhaps say, okay, Porro, you're not having the greatest of times. However, the main areas that you're good for us are crossing the ball, getting the ball into the box, and so on. So why don't we move you up, put Gray at right back, and then maybe put Reguilon at left back. Now, Reguilon's not my favourite player. Don't think he's good enough. We've been trying to get rid of him, but he's still with us. He's still in the squad. He still has a part to play, and he has said, Ange, that he's a squad player. He's available. So if he's available, why would you not put him in his natural position? Just as an option, right? Well, why not do that? And then, of course, he says, well, I've got to take Richarlison off because I'm worried about him feeling something in his groin. Bearing in mind, he's already had an extra couple of weeks leave or training to get his strength back, to get his fitness back. He comes on, scores a goal, a really good goal. He's working hard. Maybe he needs to be a little bit protected because obviously we've got games coming up in the week and so on. And you've got a guy on the bench who is, by position, a striker, Will Lancashire, that you're not using. So you move Sonny from left-sided attacker to centre, where he is less effective than he is at left-sided attacker when he's having a poor game at left-sided. So you move him into his in a worse position when you've got a striker on the bench. Sonny is calling out for a break. He needs a break. You've got Mikey Moore back. You'll trust Mikey Moore at 17, and you'll trust Bergvall at 18 and Gray at 18, but you won't trust a 19-year-old Will Lancashire, who may not be the answer. I get it. He may not be the answer. But you've got to play with the cards that you've given. And if you do that and you are playing those guys, then I can kind of go, okay, I'll give you some more credit in the bank for that because you're utilising the squad that you've got. Because on Thursday, is Richarlison going to play against Elfsborg? He's your striker. So, and ideally, you would want your strongest team out first, get the job done, then make the changes. So, for me, he's just not helping himself with those kind of decisions. I said at the beginning, before the game started, I would have liked to have seen Son rested today and Mikey Moore come on and then, maybe give Sonny a run if he really needs to. Because I think Mikey Moore, he brings something, a bit of dynamism to the game, a bit of pace and a bit of attacking and intent where he goes past people. But obviously, not happening. Maddison being out is what changed for Sarr having to come in because he's sore. Well, I have to tell you, I'm sore since Thursday. So, but I'm still up at 6 o'clock in the morning, travelling all the way up there. Where's your commitment? So that doesn't ring true to me either. So I'm, really, really struggling with some of these kind of comments, decisions that he's making at the moment. So I find it quite hard to really get behind him 100%. I want him to do well. I want this to turn around for him. I want the players to start coming back so he can really, see what he's got and do something. I want the club to back him, bring players in. If nothing more than to support the club rather than the manager. If he's not going to be the manager longer term, then okay, I get that. But that still doesn't mean that you should not bring players in of quality, because it's of quality that we need, not just the young lad from Southampton who's another 18-year-old with prospects, decent player. Don't get me wrong, but he's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for players that are going to come into this first team and make it stronger. So really, 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 really difficult. To be honest with you, I'm really, really struggling with it. And then when you talk about the game itself, Porro, one decent cross, great goal by Richarlison, who scored with his head from behind him. Essentially, he had to kind of come back and direct that in. A great goal, really, really well worked. But the rest of the game, we didn't do an awful lot. We hit the crossbar a couple of times. I think a couple of saves from the keeper, but we didn't dominate that game in the way that you should against a team that's really down there struggling. Not 1 in 7 games or something, 6 games, whatever it is. You should be dominating that and really putting them under the cosh early on, putting it out of sight before you kind of get any kind of level of pushback from them. But first half comes, I wasn't convinced. Second half comes along, and within 5 minutes we're 2-1 down, and Jamie Vardy bundles one home because of a keeper error, I guess, kind of a bit of confusion between I don't know, it was sliding, sort of coming back and Kinski coming out, but they seem to get that wrong, and that kind of let it go through, and then it kind of bobbles off of Vardy, of course, and and there you are, and then we're chatting away to the guys around me, and you could say it's coming, the next one's coming, you could just see it, the writing was on the wall, and of course, so much space opens up. Porro makes a poor challenge and gives the ball away, and then you're under the cosh. Of course, after that, Leicester do what Leicester do, is like falling over, fouling, time wasting, and all the rest of it. And it was ridiculous to me that the referee was, again, we're always talking about referees being awful, but again, referees giving far too much leniency to time wasting. And for me, they should just do this thing where they just stop the clock. When the game stops, stop the clock. When they kick the ball, start the clock. Cuts all that out. Cuts it all out totally, because this time wasting is just a ridiculous scenario, and it's just really, crazy. You end up with 7 minutes additional time at the end of the game, which actually could have been probably closer to 10, and then a load of that time was wasted as well. So, yeah, really, 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 really frustrating. Really frustrating. But it's what Leicester did, because they needed to get those points, because they really need them. They want to get out of the relegation zone, and they want to stay in the Premier League, and that's what they do when they fight. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think our players have got it in them to actually fight strong enough and hard enough to stay in this league. So, yeah, absolute pants, terrible performance, and like I say, the booing and the chanting is getting bigger and bigger and louder and louder. And to be fair, quite rightly so. The time of just accepting it is disappearing. The players did come round, they did clap the fans, and they did get clapped. Not all of these players were poor. I thought, to be fair, I thought that Gray had another really good game, playing at left back, then playing in the centre midfield. But Bergvall was running his heart out right till the final. I thought he was really good. I even felt that the young lad, Mikey Moore, again, thought he did well. I thought he was very direct. He worked hard. Reguilon put in more crosses than I care to count, with no one being there to finish him off, and lots of scrambling around at the end. Porro again, 2 opportunities to play the ball into the danger zone and decided to go for goal, go for that glory, and it didn't happen. Sometimes you've got to think. You've got to think who's in a better position than me. Sometimes you've got to take your chance. I get it. And that's one of the other things we don't do. We haven't taken our chances. But then the other thing is there's a time to take your chance and there's a time to give it to a player in a better position. And when you're coming from the angle that Porro was coming from and you've got players standing in the box, you've only got to play it across, and one of them surely is going to get their foot to it. And even a defender running back towards goal or going back towards goal may even turn it in their own net. You know, it's all about decisions. And I just struggle to see where his head's at. And to be honest with you, the other thing I'm struggling with is where does this next win come from? You know, where do we go from here? Because okay, we've got a Premier League break now. Elfsborg in the week. Hopefully that's a win and secures to go through into the knockout stages of the Europa without having to play additional games. Then after that, we've got Brentford away. Don't have a great record there. I'm not sure I can see us winning there. Then you've got the Europa, the conference game, not conference game, the Carabao Cup game against Liverpool, and I think that's the key one for Ange. I think lose that, that's when I think he goes, because I think Daniel Levy is unlikely to dismiss someone who's that close to a final and take the same flag he did with Jose Mourinho. Whereas I think if you're out of the Carabao Cup and then at the weekend you're playing in the FA Cup and you go out the FA Cup against Leicester, against Villa, then I think that's 2 year cups out the window, and I think there is still time in the Europa League for a new manager to turn it around. So I think that's the key one for Ange, is whether he gets through the Liverpool game to the final, which is a massive ask. Absolute massive ask. And then after that, Man United, back to the Premier League, Man United. So again, doesn't come a lot harder than that. I know they're going through a difficult time and all the rest of it, but they got a new manager and things are changing there. And I just don't, unless we're starting to get players back very, very quickly who are going to put in better shifts than some of the players who we're kind of relying on. I just worry, and this is where my issue of relegation comes into play, because I'm now starting to think we're getting so close to that. I'm starting to look over my shoulder and looking at the results for Southampton and Ipswich and Leicester and Everton and Wolves and teams like that, as opposed to looking at what Arsenal are doing, what Man City are doing, what Chelsea are doing, and what Liverpool are doing, and what I'm not looking at them because I just can't see it, and we are in a real difficult situation. So, apologies for the real downbeat, miserable vlog, I guess, but it is what it is, and you have to say how it is sometimes. So, anyway, we'll be back on Tuesday with Shooting the Shit, where I'll talk with the Essex boys about their perspectives of this game and maybe have some therapy. So if you're around and you want to have a contribution to that and tell us how you're feeling or what your ideas are and where you think the blame lies, come along Tuesday night, 7:30, and we'll see you there. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Up the Spurs.